But I'm like, nope, this is the first time I'm actually close. So.
Like you're actually 13, so in like 3-4 years, she's not gonna wanna, she's gonna be in school, she's gonna have a boyfriend, she's gonna, they're not gonna wanna do the whole family thing. And literally, we've done nothing since, we're just a trailer.
All right,
Time for us to do it.
it is 6:30, so we'll call the meeting to order. Welcome to our regular council meeting for Monday, November the 13th. Call the meeting to order, and if you're able, I would ask that you stand and join us for the playing of the national anthem. We would like to begin by respectfully acknowledging that the town of Shelburne resides within the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, including the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, Chippewa, and the people of the Three Fires Confederacy. These traditional territories upon which we live, work, play, and learn are steeped in rich Indigenous history and traditions, and it is with this statement that we declare to honor and respect past and present connection of Indigenous peoples with this land, its waterways and resources. Encourage residents to review the call to action information, which can be found by following the links on our website. As a reminder that members shall declare any pecuniary interests that they may have with respect to any agenda items on the docket this evening, and those declarations must be made both verbally and in writing. On to our minutes from our October 30th regular council meeting, as well as the November 6th special council meeting. I have a motion to adopt those minutes as circulated, moved by Councillor Bernardo, seconded by Councillor Guichardi. Any discussion on either set of minutes? All in favor? It's carried. All right, so that takes us to public question period. Questions not related to the budget, just general questions. Are there any questions from the gallery? Submitted? No. Okay. All right. So that takes us to our presentation section, which includes the presentation of our 2024 draft budget. For the three people in attendance, thanks for joining us this evening. Just to save us some time, or all of us some time, if possible, have the three of you seen the presentation from a previous meeting at all? No? Okay, then in that case, I will ask our treasurer to presentation going, and I guess the presentation slideshow will actually appear on that screen for the gallery to see. And following that presentation, if there are questions or comments, we'll entertain those.
So good evening, your worship, members of council, staff, and the public joining us tonight. We are pleased to bring you a high-level overview of the 2024 draft budget. We've tagged this presentation as the year of the cart, and this is depicted throughout the slide deck, which shows a number of our town parks and recreation facilities. So we have a table of contents here for reference later. If you have questions.
Great, Carrie, maybe just before you go on, did each of you get a copy of the budget package at the back? Okay, excellent, thanks.
This slide is just a summary of where we are on the budget timeline. Since 2023, we were able to return to our normal budget schedule. So on October the 30th, we conducted a council presentation. And then we held a special budget meeting last Monday night and went through the budget department by department, making some minor changes. And tonight we have the public presentation, followed by the resolution to adopt the budget and a bylaw as well. The amount to be raised by taxation is determined by taking the revenue minus your expenses, and that the difference being the amount that's needed to be collected. So in 2024, the estimated expenses are looking to be around 12.9 million, with revenues of just over 3 million, which leaves us with $9.8 million to be collected from taxes. And that is how we determine what our taxation levy will be. Prior to presenting the budget, staff presented council with a budget framework report outlining certain items that would be proposed in the 2024 budget. One of those was a tax rate increase not to exceed 5%. 3 new positions. Several equipment purchases that are DC eligible. Therefore, staff requested that we start the RFP process now in order to be in the queue for 2024 equipment purchases. And we also requested that an increase in transfers to reserve to assist with long-term capital assets. In 2023, we had budgeted to take funds from the tax stabilization reserve, and due to increased investment income, we did not have to do that. So we are utilizing 300,000 in the 2024 draft budget, and we've also asked that 150,000 of the 2023 estimated surplus put into that reserve as well. And council chose to remove the weekend transit that had been originally in the 2024 draft budget, so that moved to $91,200. Year-over-year comparison. There's a brief explanation as to what each of those department changes in each of those departments, and what generally happens with revenues is an increase or a decrease in transfers to reserves, government grants, and things like that make our revenues fluctuate. So while this is showing an 8.6% increase in total revenues, the amount to be raised by taxation is actually 8.7. And in keeping with the balanced budget, this is the annual 2024 estimated expenditure comparison. And this includes increases to insurance premiums, fuel, utilities, cost of living, contracts that are tied to CPI, and equipment cost increases. And you will notice from the explanation column, further detailed in the budget, that many of the increases in costs are attributed to growth and the staffing resources that the town needs to carry out all of the projects that are identified in this budget. So the town is still experiencing growth, even though phased-in assessment did not occur. Because of that, we were able to increase the tax levy by 9%, while only increasing the tax rate by 5%. What that equates to for an average home assessment is $11 per month, or $132 annually, and that is based on 2024 estimated assessment growth of 4%. And we've always presented this slide. It shows varying homes throughout town, from single family houses to townhomes in older parts of towns, mature areas, and new builds. So these are just examples of, because there is no assessment phase in, assessments are stay the same, and that means that the average can will increase by $11 a month, and then actually varying assessments for other homes around town. And this is the organizational chart, and the 3 yellow squares represent the 3 new positions that the town is including in the 2024 budget. Here's money is split between the various services that the municipality provides. Under protective services, we've included the services of bylaw enforcement, crossing guards, and conservation. Public works include, operations include cemetery, waste management, and storm sewers. Planning and development includes the BIA levy and the economic development budget. Recreation and culture includes the town's share of the CDRC arena and library, as well as the heritage committee, local cultural grants, Fiddle Park, and town events. And the general government services includes the town hall, as well as our communications department and HR. So our capital projects for 2024 total just over 8.4 million. And included in those costs are some exterior upgrades to the town hall to protect that asset from deterioration, as well as a new server. And the town was successful in obtaining the connecting link grant for Owen Sound Street, so that work will take place in 2024 in conjunction with some other streets that have been identified in the roads needs study. And there's also some expansion plans in the cemetery. For the operations budget, we've included the new equipment replacements. As I mentioned before, some of those are new to our fleet, so they're development charge technical. Also included a workshop expansion and purchase of a generator for the works yard. And the majority of our capital projects take place in the service area of Parks and Recreation, just over $4 million. Those are in accordance with the Parks and Recreation Master Plan that was recently adopted by council. Most of those projects are DC eligible. So the funding sources for the capital budget include gas tax, development charges, OCIF funding, connecting link grant. We've also included some donations from a couple of sources in town that have identified their interest in contributing to some of our projects. And development charges makes up over just half of these revenue sources, which I already mentioned are predominantly recreation associated. This is just a brief summary of our reserves. We separated the general reserves from the water and sewer reserves, which you will see later in the presentation. And reserves are only utilized and transferred if the project proceeds or if grant funding is successful. So you will see fluctuations in what the estimated reserve summary will be based on what the previous year ended up. Tax stabilization reserve shows an opening balance of $514,000, and that includes the $150,000 that is being proposed to put in there on the 2023 surplus. This slide shows the water and wastewater rates that are in accordance with the recent water rate study that the town just recently undertook. And it shows changes that were adopted and also includes the alternative rate structure that has changed, the increasing block consumptive rates serve to promote water conservation. And staff are working on the bylaw to bring that back to council. And it also includes our contract with Ontario Clean Water Agency, which is one of the contracts that I mentioned is tied to coal out increases. And with respect to the water capital budget, and we have the water storage tower for water that was substantially completed in 2023, so we've not carried that project forward. Well 3 is another project that is currently underway and hopefully will be completed by year end, so we've not carried that forward either. So we've got improvements to well 1 and well 9. And for sewer capital, we have the continuation of the water pollution control plant engineering and design. That project started just a little over a year ago and was slated to take a couple of years to complete, and we're spending $2 million on that plant design. All of the water and sewer capital projects are funded by either reserves or development charges. And this is the summary of the water and wastewater reserves. Shown this slide only at 2027, just because there are some big projects in the hopper for water and sewer, and in accordance with our water rate study, we were able to estimate what we think our reserves will look like by the time that we need to utilize these funds for our water pollution control plant expansion. The funding for the future wastewater pollution control plant will consist of a combination of many revenues, and these sources come from development charges, long-term debt, reserves, grant revenue if available at the time, and front-ending agreements with interested developers. And this is the last slide in the presentation, and it shows current debt capacity, or not our debt capacity, our debt value for several projects, 2 of which will be paid off in year 2026, which will leave our borrowing capacity more open to be able to fund some of the projects that we have coming forward. And at the end of 2024, it shows that our debt balance is $7 million, and $4.5 million of that is from the new water tab. And the presentation, I will turn that over to you.
Thanks, Gary. Great. Are there any questions from the public or comments? Sure, Mr. Selby, but just ask if you don't mind when you make your comment or ask your question, if you could just state your name and what municipality you're in.
Just comment, your worship, not really a question. Very well put together package. Thank you very much.
Alan Selby from Shelburne.
And I think the tax levy at 5% is quite reasonable compared to what inflation has been for the last couple of years. I know there are people in the town that are on fixed incomes and their incomes are probably not going up by 5%. But I think I think you've struck a good compromise with that target, and in your water and sewer increase is less than 5. So I really don't think that can expect anything better than that. And so I think there's been a lot of hard work put into it. I think you've done a very good job. And as far as I'm concerned, as one individual citizen, if you were to adopt this as it stands, I would be quite satisfied.
Always appreciate your comments, and as an individual citizen with the breadth of experience you have, your comments do carry some weight. So I'd certainly appreciate that. And in terms of you know, giving kudos to the work that's gone into that. Obviously that starts with our treasurer, but goes to the rest of our staff team as well. So other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
My name's Steve Miller. I'm with Flato Intelligence. And just for brevity and to get my points across, if you don't mind, I'll read my comments. My comments and questions are related to wastewater treatment capacity. In your capital budget, you have unfunded expenditures of $12 million per year, starting in 2025 for years. Projected cost, we understand, is likely about $40 million. I've heard that at meetings. And increasing likely to 10% per year with construction cost inflationary pressures that we see in projects from, I know in my past life, we had one at Dundalk similar to your water tower. And it started at 3.6 billion, and before we were done, it was over 6. So, I mean, it's very tough. The sooner you start construction of homes, the sooner you're gonna get those development charges to come in and start supporting this capital funding project. In your budget, one of your sources listed was wastewater expansion. It could be done through funding agreements with developers as part of that funding model. This is possible if wastewater project is not possible if development do not progress and that cash that we would put towards those kind of agreements and development agreements is not carried out, and we have to service our debt in advance of what we'd like to get going on our developments. So my question is, you are in the design phase, and I understand it's going to be 2 years, but at what point do you feel you'll be tendering the project through this engineer design completion, and what's the planned construction start date for the wastewater plant? Tendering.
Let our CAO provide some details on that.
Thanks, Mayor Mills, through yourself. I know that Jennifer, our Director of Legislative Services, had provided Mr. Milner with the background. So I'll just reiterate and summarize. This analysis was completed with respect to our AMO delegation to the Minister of Infrastructure in August. That document outlined the predicament that we face as the town of Shelburne. Unlike any other municipality, we're not dissimilar with the impact of development charges related to Bill 23. So as the Treasurer mentioned, the design and engineering is initiated. We expect the design and engineering to be completed in Q1 2024. As was outlined in our AMO delegation and in our staff report on the impacts of charges, there is no intent at this point to proceed with the project, and it is deferred until we have planned for funding, whether that's comprised of front-end agreements with all the applicable developments, which were outlined in that staff report, as well as in the AMO delegation. And there's multiple larger scale developers, including Flato, or additionally looking at some kind of capital type of structure for financing. In addition to that, we are waiting to find out what the province was going to do in terms of their commitment to make us whole as municipalities, and AMO has been a tremendous advocate in that realm. That still has not been provided to us. The most recent funding is 200 million over 3 years for water and wastewater infrastructure. And I think the comments back is that is a drop in the bucket compared to the requirements of most municipalities. Collingwood, for example, is looking at a $270 million structure. Even though it's a collaboration between, I believe, Springwater, Collingwood, Saga, or not Saga, Town of Mountain, all are in New Tech being part of that. So we will be a staff coordinating, we expect in the next 3 to 4 weeks, a meeting with all the developers that would have an interest in front-ending agreements. That will identify what potentially will be the cost just for the waste treatment plant. We are currently reviewing all the servicing impacts, including stormwater, because the impacts for Bill 23 are not specific and isolated to just the treatment plant. There are all the ancillary support services that DCs have a bearing on, including even parkland dedication. So that's really where we are. It was the direction of council that in the absence of this project being something that can be funded by this municipality, and we estimated what our shortfall was from the development charges change, there is a potential that the project would not proceed. I think council's direction is that this would not be something that the taxpayer community would be bearing. And we would then have to go to a net strategy, and that was outlined in our delegation, whereby maybe that the forward direction expansion would be not proceeded with, and the remediation repairs to support the existing development, and that I think was estimated that when we did it originally, probably changed as well, was about 15 million. So that's where we sit. You'll be getting contacted in terms of this front-ending meeting, and then we'll look at all of the impacts of that. And then potentially, the timing would be then warranted based on that kind of input and commitment. And then the tendering would not proceed until we have that confirmation from council that the funding strategy that we're recommending will be approved. I think that probably addresses all of it. Dave, is that enough? Perfect, thumbs up, okay.
By the way, congratulations on having such a complete budget. You're likely gonna have a record.
What? As Barry said, I mean, in non-election years, I mean, traditionally, we always have had to tried to have our budgets done before, the actual year end, which I know is not really all that common within Dufferin County, at least, the lower tier municipalities, but that was delayed last year, obviously because of the election, but we're back on track, and potentially looking at a bylaw as early as next meeting. So anyways, anything, sir? Yes.
Barry Lewis, I'm new to town, so I just want to welcome and see how town meetings went. I did have one simple question, connecting link paving, is that related to the laneway paving?
I'll let our CAO explain that, because she can do a far more technical job than I can.
Thank you for your question. So the connecting link is the corridor within the town of Shelburne that is under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Transportation. So that runs from Simon Street along Main Street, and then it turns again at Owen Sound Street and goes up Highway 10. And then if you cross over at the light, it goes to another extension. So there's 3 components of it along 89 going west. So we have to apply for funding each year, and we're really good at applying. We're not as great at getting the money, but we have been successful lately to have everything of that connecting link upgraded. Because obviously, if you're new, you might be aware that there's significant volume of traffic that moves through our community on its way to somewhere else. The laneway paving is a different project, and we actually do undertake that based on a schedule. If you want more information, we usually have on the laneways on our website, which specific laneways are being done each calendar year. And currently those are listed right now, but my colleague is the Director of Operations and Development, or Development and Operations. He can answer any other questions that you have that are more technical. You probably live on a laneway. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Problems.
We have more of these things.
All right. Okay. Well, if that's last questions or comments from the public, then we'll move on. The first item on the regular agenda that we'll get to shortly is another opportunity for council to have further discussion on the budget. So if you're interested, by all means, stick around a few extra minutes. Council inquiries. Are there any inquiries before we move on? Councillor Wagner?
Yes, thanks so much. So I've recently had a community member reach out out to me, with regards to, I guess it would be considered property standards. With the house that was demolished after the fire on O'Reilly. There's been some concerns with, how long it's taking to facilitate cleanup. Also, that the community seems to be using it as a open dumping ground, so things are actually getting added to it. And then there's just a little bit of a safety concern as well with regards to children, you know, kind of thinking it's a fun place to go and explore. So, you know, I had someone sort of physically, or I guess, I don't know if that's physically reached out to me, but sent me a message. And then I've also spoken with someone verbally who had the same concerns. So I said I would bring it up at council inquiries, just so that hopefully they're watching and they can hear the answer. If I am correct in my response that it's by law, and likely bylaws already engaged in it. So, but I did recommend that they fill out the form, and anybody else around them or adjacent to that area also fill out the form, just so that, you know, it's done properly. But I will let town staff speak to a little bit more of the legal information, so that those watching and have that information.
Excellent.
And thank you, through your worship. That is an ongoing bylaw enforcement matter, so of course, details of that file are confidential. Understanding the circumstances that came to be for it to be demolished and razed by fire. So not sure if the public can understand the fact that, you know, there's insurance requirements. It's an OPP matter as well, so enforcement mechanisms, unfortunately, at this time are
So just to let the public know, we are aware, OPP is aware, and bylaws aware, and we are sort of doing the best we can within the scope of our limitations. Right, perfect.
Great way of putting it. Councilor Bernardo.
Yeah. In regards to the Besley Drain between Greenwood and coming on to Main Street, going behind the Petro Canada and the Plaza. There's a lot of garbage in that drain, and a lot of fallen trees as well in the area. Is it going to be at some point in time cleaned up? And is it possible to get some fencing to prevent garbage from going back in with? It seems to be blowing across from the plaza area and with the wind and whatnot into the drain, and it just creates a bad situation.
Through your worship, there is a current development going on there at 600 Main Street, so some of it could be coming from there, so we'll mention that to them to have that cleaned up. That is part of their responsibility. We do have fallen trees in the drain itself. We still have our Besley drain clean out that was on the books to be done yet. We still have to get our permits and that from NBCA. Our engineering firm at FBA is working on that now. So we're planning that 2024 we'll have that full clean out all the way from Victoria right over to County Road 124 complete. So.
And I guess the question is, it's really nice once we've cleaned it up, but we've got to find a way to prevent it from getting whatever is being thrown in there, blown in there, or whatever it's getting, but it is getting into the drain area. And my understanding from my time on the NBCA, that if it's water running in there, there's a potential for fish to be in there and other creatures as well. And the last thing they need to do is have some toxic items that will prevent them from.
Through your worship, we do go through our operations staff do clean out the section annually. So I'm not sure if they've been through there yet this year. I'd have to check with our staff on that one. But yeah, that area for the contractor and that development, and definitely have them address that.
So the final part of the question, I guess, or what I was trying to drive at, is it possible to speak to the owners of the plaza to see if some fencing or something can help be put up within that area? To prevent further garbage from going in, because it is all asphalted in that area there, and it's very easy for people once to throw stuff in there or whatever, because it's paved and they can drive in behind there, so it become a garbage dump quite easily for them. At the same time, it also allows for wind and whatnot to blow stuff in there. So is it possible to get some agreement with the plaza people to fence that area off?
For your worship, we'd have to look into contact information for the owner of the property and that. I'm not too sure that we could insist that they fence it. There's nothing, no plan or any proposal for that on that property that I've ever seen before that says that it needs to be fenced, and the rest of the terrain is open. So that may be an issue there, I would think.
I wasn't thinking we would, I was thinking maybe in some form of discussions with the owners and see if it's possible we can come to some form of an agreement. Just as good property.
Anybody else? Okay, thanks, Carrie. Do you want to stay up there for the discussion? Okay, all right. Probably a good idea. All right, so the first item on the regular agenda then is just continued budget discussions from council. Is there anything that has come to mind since last Monday night that anybody wants to get off their chest? Carrie.
Let council know that at the special budget meeting, we did lower the grant line by 10,000. Very next morning, we found a need for that $10,000. We are having to conduct a community risk assessment through the fire marshal's office, and Orangeville has already done the pre-qualification for bidders for us to secure the consultant for us. So we're hoping that it would cost 10,000 or under, but we have just realigned those funds so it didn't change the bottom line.
Anybody else? No? Are we still comfortable with things as they stand? Okay. Well, yeah, yeah. But I mean, to Alan's point, and I think as a few of us said last week, you know, in the inflationary context with which we're in and everything else going on around us, I don't think a 5% rate increase is unreasonable. Particularly when you look at the number of things that we're undertaking next year, and you know, it's a fairly ambitious year and a fairly moderate rate increase to go with it, I think. So I can't say it any better than Alan did. I think it's a good striking of balance. So all right, so if we seem to be satisfied, then I don't see the point in waiting until next meeting to request a bylaw. So I'm going to actually make a motion that we direct staff to bring forward a bylaw to adopt the 2024 municipal budget as amended through presentations, discussions, and deliberations held October 16th, 20th, 30th, November 6th, and 13th. Is there somebody that would like to second that for me? Councillor Sample. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. All right. Ahead of schedule. Thanks, Carrie. Okay, the next item is a report from our planner to provide sort of a summary on Bill 134. Okay, Steve's going to join us virtually.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear us, Steve? Oh, there we go. Yep. And now.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think there's a bit of delay, so I'll walk you through this report, and then you can let me know if there are any questions. Thank you for letting me join virtually tonight. The report is just providing a bit of a summary on the Affordable Homes and Good Jobs Act which is known as Bill 134, introduced on September 28th by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. This bill builds on Bill 23, which was brought into effect almost a year ago on November 28th, 2022. There were pretty sweeping changes to the Development Charges Act and the Planning Act as part of Bill 23. One of the significant changes to development charges as a result of Bill 23 is the DC Act now includes provisions for exemption of certain housing types from development charges, from the requirement to pay development charges. However, those provisions in Bill 23 have not yet come into force. And the intent with Bill 134 is to actually give some additional detail to those provisions so that they can ultimately be brought into force. One of the chief concerns that was raised previously with Bill 23, of course, is that with each exemption to development charges, there are corresponding shortfalls that may be difficult to quantify now, but we know will be there in the years to come. If these exemptions are successful and actually lead to some affordable housing being constructed or housing that meets the affordability criteria, then the municipality would not receive development charges from that housing. What Watson and Associates has provided, which is very helpful, is a set of tables and a bit of example analysis of, under these new rules proposed, what would qualify as an affordable residential unit under these proposed definitions. That was really the missing piece from Bill 23 that's now proposed to be refined through Bill 134. One of the key concerns has been with these exemptions is that they're fairly broad in the range of housing that would be considered quote unquote affordable. And certainly under Bill 23, that way that was originally passed is that, some pretty expensive housing would qualify, and what it would amount to is just a lot of lost development charges, but not really achieving very much in affordability. I would say Bill 134 definitely improves that situation. It adds some additional criteria that affect what would be considered an affordable unit. And it does move things in the right direction in terms of putting more emphasis on rental units and the need for affordable rental units. And those types of units would have broader eligibility for development charge exemption than ownership units. The price threshold for an ownership unit is lower. So the calculations that are provided in my report provide some illustrative examples, and these are based on 2022 data. So of course, this will change over time as new information becomes available. And there's a provincial bulletin that ultimately will need to be made available by the province to provide the market data that's needed to make these calculations on a year-to-year basis. But just by way of illustration, using the data that is available from 2022, under this proposed legislation in Shelburne, an affordable residential rental unit would be anything that is $1,098 per month or less. So any rental units that are constructed under that price point would be exempt from development charges. And that threshold is higher than what it would have been under Bill 23, where it would have been $878 per month. So that's where Bill 134 is actually broadening the range of rental housing that would be eligible for development charge exemption. But then on the ownership side, under Bill 23, this was one of the main concerns, is that the broad definition of affordable under Bill 23 would have allowed housing over $700,000 in purchase price to be considered affordable and exempt from development charges. And I don't think too many people would agree that that is an affordable price point. So the new Bill 134 definition would give a couple of different ways to calculate the affordability metric. And the price point that would be considered affordable, again, based on the 2022 data, would be more in the 485,000 range. It's not clear exactly how that will be defined by different unit types, as we know that might be considered, that would be considered a lot less affordable for a small townhouse, for example, versus a single detached dwelling. So there's more information that will be needed in order to judge how this will be calculated across the different unit types as we go forward. While the bill takes things in the right direction, the overriding concern with the whole concept is, of course, that the very infrastructure that this housing relies upon will be difficult to afford to build because in order to create and incentivize this affordable housing, it means less revenue will come to the town in order to build growth-related infrastructure. If, for example, just order of magnitude, 2,000 units get built, and each unit were to pay $20,000 in development charges under the normal development charge bylaw, that would be a $40 million DC revenue over the course of many years. And if 10% of those units are affordable, then you would lose $4 million of that revenue. If 20% were affordable, you'd lose $8 million of that revenue. So the question becomes, where does that lost revenue come from in order to incentivize these affordable units? I think the spirit and intent is right. I'm not sure about the means of getting there because, again, you're sacrificing revenue that is needed to provide the infrastructure to allow these units to be built in the first place. And I would note that there's an enforcement aspect to this where it would require a legal agreement on title to ensure that the price point or the rent rate is secured for 25 years at an affordable level. It's not that the purchase price or the rent can't change year to year. It's just that there would be some caps on that secured in an agreement. And then beyond the 25 years, presumably these units would be released from those restrictions and can be sold at typical market price. So just in conclusion, again, the overriding concern remains that there's an unknown shortfall in development charges that will result from this. Somehow the lost revenues for infrastructure related projects would need to be made up from other sources, and it's not clear where that money would be coming from. It is expected that more information may become available, including tools through the MFOA to measure this and track this over time. So it's a little bit more of a predictable thing over time. But it remains to be seen how much of an impact this could have because we just don't know how many affordable units will be built over the long term. So happy to take any questions on that report. Should you have any? Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Councillor Bernardo has one.
I have a couple actually.
Okay.
When you say that an affordable or rental home has to have a 25-year guarantee on that, who's guaranteed to who? Guaranteed to the developer, guaranteed to the municipality, guaranteed to the province? Who's that guaranteed that that price will remain that way for 25 years or the rent?
That would be an agreement on title. And although we don't know the details of how those agreements would be structured, the legislation refers to that the province might provide a standard form of that agreement. What I would envision is it would say something to the effect that any rental agreement, or in the case of ownership housing, any purchase and sale agreement would be confined to a certain maximum that the owner of the unit would not be able to rent or sell it for more than a certain amount for that 25-year period, and that there would be some formula in there to allow that to change over time, but not outside of an affordable rate as calculated using the legislation.
My next question, I guess, is in regards to for these affordable homes and for the potential of lost revenue, what tools do we have as a municipality to make sure, for example, that a development is an 80% affordable rental or homes? And we lose 80% of that potential development charges that would help us to fund whatever we need to fund to put the infrastructure.
Through the mayor to Councilor Bernardo. I think I got that question, but was it, what other means does the municipality have to try and promote affordable residential units? Was that it?
No. The question was, what tools do we have as a municipality to prevent, let's say, a development of 80% affordable rental or affordable homes and not end up with lost potential development charges for infrastructure?
Oh, okay. Yep. Through the mayor to Councilor Bernardo. That's a great question. Really, there isn't any way to prevent the units from being affordable. One of the, I don't know what kind of justification we would have to refuse, a certain percentage of the units being affordable. But one of the tools that's required with this is a legal agreement between the municipality and the owner or the developer. So I suppose, if council were concerned that there's a high percentage of units in a certain development are going to be affordable and therefore exempt from development charges, which then creates financial problems with respect to infrastructure, that you could refuse to enter into those agreements at that level, or say we'll only enter into agreements for 10 or 15 or 20% of the units to be affordable, but not 75, 80%, because it's too much of a hit on the development charge revenues. There's no clarity in the legislation right now as to what mechanisms a developer might have to challenge you on that. I think as it's structured right now, if an agreement can't be reached, I think that would be something the municipality can control a little bit that way, that we're not going to allow extensive, widespread, affordable units that are exempt from DCs unless there's a clear funding solution. And if we don't have that clear funding solution, then we're not going to enter into that many agreements.
Okay. I think Denise wants to add something and then we'll go to Councillor Kashadi.
This aligns with the other situation with the original analysis for Bill 23. And again, in our situation, all development that would like to proceed in the future is completely reliant on the waste treatment plant expansion. This bill will also be something that we have to take into consideration in the analysis that we have to undertake in order to provide council with a funding strategy. So we certainly will look at what we potentially may see in terms of complete exemptions for DCs, in addition to what we actually estimated with our original analysis and our AMO delegation. So that would all have to be factored in. Certainly, affordable housing is something that everybody strives to provide. They celebrate that they have that. Steve has said that rent is $1,060. I think we're all aware that even within Shelburne, apartments are renting for more than that. And we see a lot of the homes that have been purchased for rental use in some of the newer developments are between $25,000 to $4,000 a month. So I don't think that we're really going to seriously have, unless the developer is highly subsidizing that particular project, a lot of rentals within that particular area. And additionally, as we said, our expectation is that the waste treatment plant, even if it was worst or best case scenario, and we started to issue a tender in 2024, early 2025, we're 2 years off after that until we're open. So we'll take all of this into consideration as we do the evaluation.
Okay, Councillor Kashadi.
Just really quickly, Steve, are there any other considerations or factors that might affect the numbers here? I mean, I know we're 4 years back on impact assessments how would those change to assessment, should impact follow through? How would they affect these numbers and rents? I know it's an open question. Like,
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Gucciardi. That's hard to answer at this point, like, because this hasn't been put in place and actually tested and an agreement structure set out and a template created, and all of the different options for how to implement this municipally haven't been tested. The impacts to assessed values hasn't been figured out. It just speaks to the level of uncertainty that exists with all of this. That not only development charges would be impacted, but if there's a 25-year agreement on title to a property, I have to think that that would affect the assessment value of a property as well, if it can't be sold for a normal market price or rented beyond a certain rate. So there are some potential other secondary effects that could have financial impacts to the municipality as well.
okay, thank you, Steve.
Mayor Hall.
Maybe more of a comment than there would be of any question, but I'm appreciative to see that they've come through with an actual definition of affordable housing, which was a huge gap from the previous. And I know that this puts a lot more work and stress upon staff as they go through this process. But this certainly looks like there's an opportunity here for us to get better understanding and better numbers of what it is that we need to move forward with. Because as already stated, when we look at the situation specifically related to Shelburne, the purchase value of those houses is unheard of. And the rental side of things is not in the realm of possibility at this point. So, you know, when you look at what's going to be DC or defined as not requiring DCs, I think at this point it's somewhat reviewed.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a step in a better direction. I mean, to Steve's earlier point, you know, certainly the government's ends, I think, are admirable. You know, I think we all would like to, you know, more affordable housing options for folks. But the means perhaps have not, at least originally, been thought out very well. And you know, there may be starting to reconsider some of that. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's municipalities that have to provide the servicing for any new homes that are built. And municipalities rely largely upon DCs to provide that servicing. So we can build all the houses we want and make them affordable. We can't flush toilets in them. They're not really doing much good to anybody who can move into them. So, you know, I think the government still needs to spend some time wrapping their head around the fact that building the houses is one thing, arming municipalities with the tools that we need to service the houses is quite another. And you know, as we've said, we've made our position clear to the government. You know, we're willing to grow, but we are not going to put the costs of that growth on the backs of our existing taxpayers. So if they're not willing to work with us through DCs, as has traditionally been the case, then what else do you have to offer? So, okay, well, thanks, Steve. That was helpful. Do you have any parting comments, or you good?
No, thank you very much. And if we have further updates on this and get more information, we'll certainly provide further updates. So thanks, everybody.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Enjoy your night. And I have a motion then to receive our planner's report. Moved by Councillor Fegan, seconded by Councillor Bernardo. All in favor? That's carried. All right, next is a report from our Director of Legislative Services regarding DocuPet online animal licensing.
Thank you, and through your worship. I'll give a high-level overview of the report before you tonight. As the Legislative Services Department continues to review regulatory bylaws and best practices, the pandemic proved the need to provide online-based approaches for residents. In 2022, staff contacted DocuPet to learn more about how their online licensing program platform works and the benefits to residents. So DocuPet services approximately 50 municipalities within Ontario and is a social enterprise intended to increase license sales, associated revenue, get more pets home safely with better tags and services, increase pet owner education and engagement. Their key offering, they also offer customized dog tags, ease of access for online purchases, increased communication with pet owners via social media and online communication, and provide a positive customer service experience. Their dog tags come with a unique code tied to their free Home Safe Lost Pets service. If a pet becomes lost, a pet owner can send alerts to local pet owners who will use the pet's code and DocuPet's 24/7 hotline to reunite the pet owner and the pet. Attached to the report as Appendix 2 is the Pet Licensing Services Agreement. During the term of the agreement, DocuPet will provide Shelburne with pet registration services. The town will be undertaking an extensive communication plan for residents to educate the new service by utilizing the town's social media website, newspaper, and using inserts within the water, sewer, and tax bills. DocuPet also has an extensive marketing campaign to assist us the word out. So current dog tags will remain in place and will be extended beyond their expiring date of December 31st until we can get this service up and running. There is a need to amend our current animal control bylaw because right now at the moment, dog tags expire as of December 31st every year. We'll be switching to a 365-day based on date of purchase program. So if someone purchases a tag in March 1st, that tag is valid for 365 days to the next March 1st when they need to renew it. There's no need to purchase new tags every year. It's one tag. If they wanted to order new tags, different tags, pet pictures on it, little sayings on it, that's completely at their decision and their choice. The financial impact, one-time startup fee, $2,499. There's also a monthly fee of $267. The monthly fee is a fixed cost. It does not increase for the term of the agreement. So the above fees are included in the draft 2024 budget. The town collects 100% of the fees and will pay DocuPet their monthly fee of $267 upon receiving their invoices. So happy to take any questions if you have any.
All right. I know Councillor Bernardo asked about compliance with dog licensing, I think at our last meeting or 2 meetings ago, and I think in all cases, when you make compliance easier for people, the hope is that we'll start to see better compliance numbers. So for the cost associated, I definitely think it's well worth the try, and let's see what happens. Okay. Other thoughts? Okay. All right. Thanks, Jennifer. Can I have a motion then to receive the report and to provide for the reading and enacting of a bylaw to enter into the licensing service agreement with DocuPet, well as a bylaw to amend our existing animal control bylaw, which is bylaw number 15-2018. Moved by Councillor Sample, seconded by Councillor Guichardi. All in favor? It's carried. Next item is a bylaw to formally appoint our parking enforcement officer. So this was discussed briefly last week within the context of the budget. So we're just looking for a bylaw which will officially appoint Damian Davidson as our winter parking enforcement officer. Can I have a mover and seconder to that? Councillor Egan, seconded by Councillor Bernardo. All in favor? Carried.
Can we let the public know tonight that it starts?
Jennifer?
Through your worship, we had started communications with the public through our social media, Instagram, Facebook, on our website a month ago.
Yeah, I'm just saying tonight, for those that are listening, Wednesday night, their cars must be off.
1 a.m. just tomorrow night technically, right?
Tomorrow night.
So,
Well,
1 a.m.
There's-
Well, it's Wednesday, yeah, 12:01 Wednesday.
And I think in years past, there's been a bit of a grace period offered informally where education has been offered, and I don't think that's going to be the approach this year. So I guess if you're parking there at 12:02 tomorrow night, expect a ticket for $40. Counselor Sample.
That was my comment to this, is that I know last week we talked about this and it was education and everything with everybody that's going on. We know we do have cars parked on boulevards. I see it every winter, so I'm not sure. Education is gonna be a big thing out there because people think it's their property, you know what I mean? And they think they're allowed to do it. So are we stressing to them that we're gonna write a ticket the first time, or are they gonna get warnings?
I think the presumption always should be that, once the deadline passes.
I get it, but
Yeah.
I just wanna make sure if anybody's listening, they're hearing this and
Yeah.
they understand it, right?
Jennifer?
Through your worship, when the Shelburne Police Services were issuing the winter parking tickets, they would give a 1 week grace period. When they transitioned out and we transitioned into OPP, we then hired a third-party contractor for those services. And at that point in time, that's when the grace period ended, which was 2 years ago.
I'm just saying education, because there's gonna be a lot of heavy hits going on because we've dedicated the time and stuff. Because I know I did talk to Tag Security when they were out and about last year, because I happened to be one of those persons that left my vehicle on the road at 12:02, and I went out there and I saw them. I said, oh, I'm moving it right now, because I completely fell asleep and I woke up and I had to move it. So I didn't get a ticket because I had communication with the person and I moved the vehicle.
I think if you were physically on your way to your car, you'd probably be okay, but.
Well, I saw the car pull up behind it when I was.
So I'll just expand. So the director mentioned that we have been transitioning for 2 years in terms of trying to educate the community, and certainly appreciate some of the challenges that you may face in certain parts of the community. However, what was monumental in terms of awareness was the direction of council through the bylaw to amend the ticket price from 10 to 40. That hasn't changed. So I would suggest that that is a huge educational component, and that people should be aware that if I was getting a ticket in the summer for non-compliance at 40, that is still going to apply in the winter when it's even more prevalent. So I would suggest potentially that, unlike the $10 ticket, which maybe didn't change your behavior as quickly, a couple of $40 tickets unfortunately will change your behavior. So the education is probably going to be that ticket, which will be a heightened awareness of what you can't do.
Councilor Bernardo?
But if, and I know, Councilor Stevens tried to explain, but I've seen a lot of cars parked at the end of their driveway after the sidewalk. They're sideways on the driveway. That is considered a boulevard.
If they're not touching the grass.
If they're parked on their driveway, not touching the grass, but parked sideways on the opposite side of the sidewalk down towards the road, is that considered a boulevard?
No.
They're fine. It's their property.
So they can park there.
Yes.
They're not blocking this.
And
As long as they're not blocking the sidewalk, as long as they're not over the grass.
That's correct.
Okay.
Or onto the street.
Okay.
Like this.
The other question is, can they park on their lawns?
No.
No.
We know they
Property.
can.
If you were trying to rent out your lawn, you can.
I'm just going by what I see when I walk around town.
He was trying to rent Kyle's lawn.
I'm not trying to rent Kyle's lawn, because I've seen everything from a paved lawn.
Yeah.
To whatnot, but people park on their lawns.
Yeah.
When they have 5 vehicles and a very small driveway and don't have a garage that's, or a planner keeps telling us they can park the car.
So if I can clarify that
that side of the sidewalk, as long as you're not touching the grass, you park sideways, you're in your driveway.
Yeah.
That
Good.
is fully
Yeah.
well.
There-
Walking sidewalk and not blocking the road.
There was a diagram that was put out a couple of years ago that might be helpful again to put out.
Sorry, I missed that.
There was a diagram that was sort of shared on social media. I think it was 2 years ago, but it, yeah, sort of this is what you can do, this is what you can't do. It was helpful just visually to see
That
it,
can
so.
Come out again.
yeah.
and Any information that we can put out
Yeah.
there related to the bylaw that's easy for someone to read and
Yeah.
just see it and just understand it. So,
Well, I mean, it's clear there's even confusion around the table, so let's, yeah, okay.
I just want to clarify completely because, you know, it's pretty unfair. I don't have a sidewalk and I can go right to the end of my driveway, but some poor soul that has a sidewalk
Yeah,
gets penalized because he's parked at the end of his driveway. That didn't make sense to me.
Madam Deputy Clerk, I did call that question, right? Alice? I did call that question?
Yes, you
Okay.
did.
Thought so, okay, all right. So next item is the revised mandate, mission statement and vision statement for Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Committee. So this was the item that was on a couple of meetings ago and we deferred to tonight so that the actual draft language could be sent out. So thank you, staff, for doing that. I mean, it seems to me, and I'll look to members of the committee, but it seems to me like we've just sort of broadened the language a little bit to include kind of the accessibility component.
That was the whole point of it.
Yeah.
When we included accessibility with DEI, we thought there had to be some language in there.
Yeah.
For that.
Okay.
And so that was the inclusive part of it.
From my perspective, I think it does that effectively. So does anybody have any issues with what's?
No, and I'd like to thank the deputy mayor and the committee that brought that language forward. They did a really good job of, I mean, I believe Councillor Bouchardy was part of that as well, right? And they did a very good job of, making that language quite clear.
Okay, excellent. Can I have a motion then to receive and adopt those revised statements? Councillor Wagner. Seconded by Councillor Bernardo. All in favor? All right, and the last item on the regular agenda is a fee waiver request from the Kinsmen to allow them to do their road toll. Yeah, so it's sort of a, well, I mean, I guess in theory, we could charge them for the road occupancy permit retroactively, but I think this is something we do most years anyway. So just to tidy that up, can I have a motion to I guess accept the request? Councillor Fegan, seconded by Councillor Bernardo. All in favor? And that's carried. All right, any notices of motion for this evening? On to communications. Is there anything from that rather lengthy list? Councillor Fegan?
Number 9. Which was the letter from Township of Langton to the Upper Grand District School Board. This letter shows me that we are not the only municipality that is concerned about our population of students. And it shows that it's all of our surrounding municipalities. In fact, I'm talking with a lot of councillors and mayors surrounding us as well, and we seem to have all of us the same concerns. And we brought these concerns forward to the school board continuously, and it seemed to fall on 50 years. With this correspondence here, I would like to make a request to have staff draft a similar letter to the school board supporting this. In fact, I would ask staff to help me remember specifically the percentage that the school board told us, where they said, if I recall correctly, they said that they would not even consider building a new school until that school was 120% capacity.
I may clarify,
Please.
I think it was high schools, or whatever the capacity is for the county, for the school board, because there is offset on
My understanding when they came to our table last term was that it was specifically the school itself. I could be,
Okay, no,
I
I could be mistaken as well. I was under I was under the understanding that a new high school wasn't gonna get built until all the surplus room was used.
and I could be very wrong on that, so I'll ask staff to clarify for me, but if it was in fact 120% capacity is what the school board is waiting for before we even look at a new school. I'd like that language included in the letter, shared to our neighboring municipalities as well as the Minister of Education in support of asking the school board to delay their decision on the boundaries.
Thoughts from staff?
I can just, through the mayor, staff will need to pull the presentation from the board to clarify. I'm inclined to support what Councillor Bishardi had said it was specific to the high school. Additionally, I think we've made it aware through the planning reports that there would be in the Western Lands Development, the requirement, and the board had actually mentioned that, of a 4th elementary school within the boundaries of Shelburne, understanding that those elementary schools in a number of cases support border municipalities and the children coming from those particular municipalities. My understanding as well is that the direction regarding the Primrose School boundary is recommendation. That there is a school board meeting tomorrow afternoon where the staff will be given formal responses with respect to the process. So if that changes, there may be information that's shared with respect to their timelines.
So my only thought would be, and I mean, I certainly have no issue with us drafting a letter, but I'm just wondering if we're maybe a little bit premature until we know exactly what it is that we're asking for in that letter. So do you think it would be helpful to sort of take some time, take a look at that presentation again, and maybe we can put it on the agenda for next meeting? Does that make more sense rather than rush it and not be clear on exactly what we're doing? Okay. Okay, perfect. Anything else on correspondence? No, okay. Can I have a motion then to receive the remaining items for information? Otto, seconded by Mr. Sample. All in favor? It's carried. All right, and a motion for the confirming bylaw. Deputy Mayor Hall, seconded by Councillor Wagner. All in favor? Carried. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Bernardo, seconded by Mr. Fegan.